Hello! Welcome to our little series on stand-up comedy and genre. This is the first episode proper, and we're going to be talking about different types of comedians. We're going to be doing some case studies within each type, and we're going to be looking at how these different pseudo-genres influence the greater art form of stand-up comedy and the different ways that they talk to each other and where they came from, where they're going, and what to make of them. And if you ask me, there's really only one place that we can start in terms of these different worlds of stand-up comedy, and that has to be the joke teller. But if you're thinking of Henny Youngman, Take My Wife, and you're thinking of that type of dee-dee-dee-dee-dee kind of Borscht Belt-y early Yiddish and African-American humor, that's going to be these guys.
Boy, I feel great tonight. I'm using a new kind of oil on my hair, but I don't know what to do with the sardines.
Want to get a guy crazy, send him a telegram, but on top of the telegram you put page 2.
I once shot an elephant in my pajamas, you know. How he got in my pajamas, I'll never know.
This is the type of comedy where you're not telling a story, you're not building an argument, you're not establishing any arcs, you're just telling a joke, and then another joke, and then another joke. That's all that you're doing.
I had to stop drinking though, because I got tired like waking up in my car driving 90.
I think it's one of the most beautiful and important subgenres that we have. I really think of it as the fundamentals. In the same way that Picasso had to learn how to paint before being a cubist, you know, he was an expert at painting realism in his early days, in his blue period and his rose period, and when he was first getting started. And then he kind of found these more absurd, surreal, abstract ways to represent what he was talking about and what he wanted to paint. He had to start out with painting a house before he could tear that house down. Stand-up comedy is pretty similar. A lot of comedians are really benefited if they can first tell a real joke before becoming a storyteller or a performance artist or any other subgenre. A lot of comedians take these and then embed them into the bits and the stories that they're telling, but some comedians choose not to, and they just present to you one 10-second joke at a time. Some of the most famous and popular of these would be Mitch Hedberg.
I find that Duck's opinion of me is very much influenced over whether or not I have bread.
Wright.
And then I almost broke both my arms trying to hold open a revolving door for a woman.
Demetri Martin.
I think the worst time to have a heart attack is during a game of charades.
Dan Mintz.
Everyone at work thinks I'm crazy because I come to work every day wearing a spacesuit. But you dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Rodney Dangerfield.
I told my old man never took me to the zoo. He said, if they want you, they'll come and get you.
These wonderful comedians who just go one at a time and tell you a very simple setup, punchline, joke. Now, even though these jokes may seem simplistic, for example, you only have about 10 to 20 words to make me laugh. Do your best. It almost feels like a game or a challenge or a puzzle.
Totally spelled backwards is ridiculous.
So of all the different neighboring art forms, joke telling feels like magic. All the work is hidden. All the math and the formulas and the seams are hidden in these jokes. They're just presenting to you these finished projects. I can't help but think of Adam's Curse, the William Butler Yeats poem, where Yeats writes, "A line may take an hour, maybe, but if it doesn't seem a moment's thought, then our stitching and unstitching has been naught." And jokes are the same way. You have to hide all of that stitching and you have to present it in a way that feels real. And if it fails, no one laughs, and it's a resounding and a very clear failure, more clear than in, say, poetry. Stand-up comedy is a strange art form because it has an expressed goal, whereas most art forms don't necessarily have goals. They more exist to make us feel things or make us experience things or think things. It's more of an evocation. where stand-up comedy can feel more like a trade. For today's case study, it was a pretty obvious decision. This person isn't my favorite comedian, and I don't adore everything they've done, but I find them utterly fascinating. I think without a doubt the most philosophically and psychologically endearing and kind of entrancing joke-teller comedian is definitely Anthony Jeselnik. NPR called Anthony Jeselnik the Dark Prince of Comedy, and that's a pretty good identifier for who he is and what he does. I remember in high school when I first started listening to him, I don't think I was laughing out loud at everything he was saying, but I was in love with this kind of charming devilishness that he so easily portrayed through his material. And I loved how fearless he was.
I was like, this guy should be hosting the show.
I mean, it would be a better show. But I don't think TBS could afford me.
This is what he does.
I feel like any time a subject is off limits, it's like my job to make a joke about it, or at least try. I feel like almost like a bad guy professional wrestler. You know, I always think that was really funny when guys would like walk into Madison Square Garden and say like, New York City's the worst city in the world. And people would like be screaming at them. It's like, of course, that's the worst thing you could say. But I thought it was hilarious that I just thought, just go with it and just be, if you're just like a total jerk, then you can kind of get away with more.
And if we want to talk about magic, what Jeselnik does sometimes feels like magic. He almost kind of looks like a magician when he's on stage. He doesn't give the audience what they want, but they can't help but be entranced with it, often laughing in spite of themselves, not wanting to laugh, but not being able to stop.
I've spent the past 2 years looking for my ex-girlfriend's killer, but no one will do it.
And any fan of comedy or any true comedian can't help but love making an audience feel that way. Stuart Lee, who's an amazing English comedian, will purposefully anger an audience just for the express goal of winning them back over the next 45 minutes, which is charming.
And I know it's weird what's happening now, because you've thought, oh, let's go out and sit in the dark and judge someone, right? But now you're being judged, and it feels strange, right?
A lot of the comedians who are some of the best practitioners of the joke, of the simple one or two liner style of stand-up comedy, oftentimes you find them dipping their toe into other worlds. Nick Thune, for example, really started off as an only joke-teller comedian.
These pants are 3/4 Roy's and 1/4 mine.
But his most recent special was just a collection of incredibly long stories. So comedians grow and they change, and oftentimes comedians who are more strict in their style find themselves easing and opening up into more fluid styles as they get older. We see this in most art forms. But Jeselnik is interesting because he built a very specific oeuvre for himself and for his world.
I think my friend Jeff is gay. I don't know. I'm so bad with names.
You can watch his earlier material just as you can watch early Larry the Cable Guy, and it's not Larry the Cable Guy.
Good to be here. I'll tell you what, I just went to visit my...
But you can watch early Jeselnik, and he does an impression of Dane Cook at one point. He does some things before he really found his voice. And because of his success, he's had TV shows, he's had specials, he's been on the roasts.
Donald, you've got a great sense of humor. You've been so happy to embarrass yourself on Saturday Night Live in the casino business.
Because of his success, I think he might feel a little stuck in that, and I think he might be a little stuck in that. Which is why I find the ending of his most recent special, Thoughts and Prayers, so fascinating.
Your new special's out?
Yeah, a new special just came out on Netflix, Thoughts and Prayers. It's been well received, I think. Got a lot of great jokes, Russell, you know how I do. And at the end, I kind of talk about why I get into these horrible things, like why I talk about dark comedy.
Now he tells all of these stories, and he does open up and he lets the audience in on some really traumatic things that have happened in his life. Whether or not he treats them as traumatic, He received some death threats for his jokes, and his family started receiving some death threats.
What did you do?
Here's what happened, Conan. I wasn't in New Zealand per se, but I was on my show and I'm obsessed with sharks. And like 30 people die a year from shark attacks, but like 100 million sharks die from people every year. So on my show, I thought it would be funny, and it was, if when a guy got killed by a shark, we would do a thing called Shark Party, where we would have I'd have dancers come out, and this guy from New Zealand got eaten by a shark. So I'm like, all right, guys, this guy got eaten, let's celebrate. Everyone in America, people were cool with it here, but then they took the media in New Zealand, took the clip, and they showed it around to New Zealanders, and they got furious. In New Zealand, they got so mad that they were like death threats for me online.
Sure.
And then someone posted my mom and dad's address and phone number online.
And he talks about how he dealt with it, but he ends this with a very simple joke, making everything he said and everything that a lot of the audience members, myself included, fell for, turns that all on his head. So he can't help himself, it seems, from turning it into a joke. This is part of why I love Jeselnik. Even if I don't love his material, I'm really fascinated by the onstage persona that he has created and the ways in which he navigates the world that he created. Jeselnik is a comedian that verges on a character comedian because his persona is so defined and so intense.
My ex-girlfriend owned a parakeet. That thing never shut up. But the bird was cool.
Now, I'm the first one that will get up to talk about how beautiful and nuanced and amazing stand-up comedy is, and how it's a place where people can speak their truths and get into like the real deep nuggets of society and make us question things and make us reconsider things and make us really dip our toe into all these different worlds. That's the power of the art form. And you can often find me pontificating on that. Even in the last video, I kind of did that. But I always found myself coming back to these joke teller comedians, these people who have these fundamentals and these people who really understand the mechanics of this art form beyond just understanding how to poke an audience or understanding how to tell a story about wacky hijinks that they were involved in. These are artists, but verging on mathematicians. They understand language. Mike Kaplan, who's one of these comedians, has a master's degree in linguistics. There's something going on here that's more than comedy. It's math, if that makes sense. It's understanding incongruity and how to put things together in a sense that catch us off guard, but not only catch us off guard, but make us laugh. So I needed to start with these comedians because this is really the basis of a ton of this art form. And this is a part that I myself and so many comedy fans forget to appreciate as much as it deserves to be appreciated. These people are warriors. There are stories of Rodney Dangerfield showing up with a ton of index cards and each one had a joke and he would just read through them, and he came back the next night with only the ones that had a laugh and 10 more, and you just keep doing it and keep whittling it down until you have a full set. Stay tuned for a few more deep dives into genres and some more case studies. Hit that subscribe button if you want to, clearly. Like, comment, I'm happy to kind of read through your comments. I think you guys are stellar. And thanks for appreciating comedy as much as I do. Au revoir.